What's up, people? Today I want to talk about being tiltless or tilting less. Essentially, it is a concept that is talked about so often when you're approaching bankroll management, when you're approaching bad beats, when you're approaching sick runs or bad runs, or vice versa, in terms of switching between running good for 2 hours to then losing three or four buy-ins within 10 minutes or something like that. Essentially, what I wanted to touch on is like the mental side of it, which is obviously the most important in terms of being able to control that. So essentially, a couple of key factors that I sort of want to talk about, and this is all while I'm playing a live session. So in terms of my thought process, we may jump around from subject to subject, but it'll always be about trying to tilt less while I try and think about playing some poker. I just find it fun to play and talk, and obviously cover subjects that relate to the mindset of the game, especially when it comes to either saving money or making money, and not, I guess, causing self harm in terms of mentally. So you could, for example, have pocket queens, raise pre-flop, get re-raised, you flat call, the flop comes queen, 10, 7. You think, okay, pretty much going to win this hand. I've flopped top set. How do I get max value? And let's say by the turn, let's say the turn brings a jack, and then the river brings an 8. And you get all the money in, let's say on the flop, and some donk turns over 8, 9, or whatever for the straight, and you go, uh, uh, how did this happen? Like, I had top set. And so you're playing, let's say 25 NL. You start to then move up to, let's say 100 NL or something, to try and regain that $25. And you find that you're tilting. So a hand like ace jack offsuit comes along and you're trying to regain, those 125 big blinds that you lost. And you start shoving weird spots and you start three betting very, very light with pocket nines against a four bet, and you just start shoving random silly hands, knowing that you're probably behind, and you start to blame poker. The poker god's fault. How could you do this to me? I flopped top set, and somehow I got the money in good, and he hit a 4-outer, he hit a 2-outer, oh my god, he hit a 1-outer on the river, and that sends your mental state into pretty much a declining state, which can end up either being super harmful to you and your family and friends and girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, whatever, which can lead to, being upset in real life, which can lead to, negative effects at work, and like it's sort of a big snowballing effect. So what I wanted to talk about is how to reduce that. And a big thing is, not to be tiltless, because it's pretty much almost impossible to be tiltless in every way, shape, or form. But it's more about being or tilting less. So tilt less, not tiltless, if that makes sense. It's a huge concept that was brought up recently when I was chatting to a few of my friends that play poker, and we were just discussing, rather than trying to be completely tiltless, why not, instead of going from, let's say, playing your A game, and playing your A game means that you're on top of it, you are playing your optimum poker. You are not tired, you are not drunk, you are not influenced by anything, you are just playing some damn good poker. Let's say that your A game wins you, let's say 3 big bets or 3 BB per 100. If you play your B game, let's say you might be tired, you've had a big day at work, you get home, you still want to play a few hands of poker. Your B game wins you, let's say 2 big bets or 2 big blinds per 100. Well, if you tilt, let's say you start tilting at a maximum level and you start to go to your D game, which is -3 big blinds per 100 hands. That's not good. So how can you, instead of, let's say, spending 30 hours a week studying and working on your A game to become, you want to get to an A plus, which is winning at 4 BB per 100. Well, that's cool. You could definitely work on it. But what happens when you tilt and go to your D game, and all of a sudden the discrepancy is so large that it's almost more profitable for you to work on your D game, which means you can do a lot of different things. You can simple things as a stop loss goal. So if you lose a buy-in, if you lose 2 buy-ins, if you lose 3 buy-ins, if you feel any way affected that your A game drops below your B to your C, and all of a sudden you know that if you get one more bad beat, you're just going to go tilt at the next limit and lose your roll. How about setting a stop loss goal, which is probably one of the most popular, whether it be 1, 2, or 5 buy-ins, when that happens, all you do is simply stop playing. You take the day off, you take a few days off, you just stop playing, which obviously stops you playing more of your D game, which is much, much more profitable than working on your A game for another 30 hours and think, okay, I need to just concentrate. I need to review my hands and review how my ace king suited, played really well against this player, but how can I actually get an extra, 30 big blinds out of that bet on the river? Is that really going to affect you long term as a more profitable player, or is working on your D game, which you lose 3 or more big blinds per 100 hands? So that is a big step one that I would recommend players. Don't really worry about playing or optimizing your A or B game. If you tilt a lot, which a lot of people do, and I know a lot of people either try and cover it up by reloading quickly and thinking, okay, tomorrow's a fresh start. I'm going to play so serious. I'm going to write down everything. I'm going to put up a board in front of my computer. I'm going to notate everything. I'm going to take notes, and I'm going to play 2 hours, and I'm going to play super well. And if I get a bad beat, I'm not going to let it affect me. Is that the right way to look at it? I mean, for some people, a small percentage of people, it may work. But what are the odds that you end up going back to your original um, old self, which is, A game, B game, C game, and then D game, and then below that, which we'll just call the no-go zone. We'll call that like a gutter ball in bowling or something. You just never really want to bowl one of those. As much as it can be fun to watch someone bowl a gutter ball, as much as it can be fun to watch someone lose their money donking it away, whether they're playing the pokies or betting on roulette or losing on poker, you don't really want to do it yourself. Um, so what I would recommend doing is working on your tilt game. So you tilt less rather than trying to be tiltless. Just tilt less. The less you tilt, the better your A game and the better that gap will be from your A to D game. So you can start to play A or B game poker all the time as opposed to maybe A or B game 80% of the time and C and D game, 20% of the time. So that's sort of what I would recommend for starters. And obviously, I want to keep this video sort of within sort of the 13 to 15 minutes, so it's not a huge rambling session. So the second thing that I would like to talk about, and it's really in regards to bankroll management, is to always leave your bankroll with enough to handle swings. Downswings are very common in poker, as much as depending on, let's say you work in retail, and sometimes you have great customers, sometimes you have bad customers. What can you do about that? Nothing. They come in, they're either nice or they're not nice, depending on the day they've had, depending on if they're tilting in real life. You can't control it. It's just a part of life. It's a cycle that continues and will always continue. It's something that you can't ever avoid unless you run so well that your D game never comes into play because, hey, you win 20K every month for the last 6 months. And, let's say you have a really bad session, lose 40K. Some people lose the rest of their role that they've just worked, 9 months winning. So you want to be able to be that person that runs good, and then when they run bad, realize you're running bad, but still play your optimum game. And the big steps you can do to this is everything from obviously working on, chopping away at your D game to making it not exist, or making it the best version of your D game, which might be, break even player, which is still totally fine. You can meditate. There's a lot of different things out there that you can use for the mindset. There's a lot of different books that you could use. I'll put some in the links below that I've read or heard about and read excerpts of that seem to be super, super, super beneficial for poker players and general life. So if you're thinking of increasing your mindset, whether it be for an outlook on everyday life or just in general, it will help your poker game 100%. It's just a given. Other than that, there's a couple of other things that I'd sort of recommend doing as well. One of the big things is to just stop playing for a week or so. If you just seem to be getting bad beat after bad beat after bad beat after bad beat, stop playing. The reason being is that a fresh outlook, whether it be a week, a couple of weeks, even a few days, it can change the whole world that you see through your eyes. So, and mindset-wise, I know even just a good night's sleep typically is very, very beneficial. So what I'd recommend is that. The second and probably, I guess the most important, other than chopping off your D game, would be to consider studying every hand, record every session. So when you play, let's say for the quick 15 minutes, grab some software, download some free software. I can put a link in the description below for some free trials and stuff like that. And just check your play. You might be playing, for instance, on this table with ace 5 off. Let's say, you put in a raise. and someone calls and the flop comes ace 6-3, and you're like, okay, I have a pair of aces. That's quite good considering that in the big blind their calling range could be weak, could be small pocket pairs, blah blah blah. You put a C bet, he calls. You turn trips. You put a D bet, he calls. You then bet the river, he shoves, and you're like, huh? What could he have here? So then you got to go back and think within the time frame that you have to call or fold. Does he have a set? Does he have a better kicker? Has he got a straight? If you can say, okay, that hand, that specific hand is what put me on tilt, then you need to really reevaluate how you're playing those particular hands, and knowing that just because you have trips or a set doesn't mean you're going to win every hand. And that sort of comes back to the whole mindset of understanding that there's 52 cards in a deck. There's not 2 million, which means when they hit a card or they have better, percentage wise, it's going to happen very often. So I guess in terms to sort of sum it all up, in terms of tilting, in terms of being able to tilt less, the big thing that I'd recommend is definitely chopping off the worst part of your game first. Because if you're already a winning player that tilts their money off all the time, then you definitely need to start to work on your losing game, which is your worst game that you play. So, as I said previously, but just to recap, if you are playing poker, drunk, under the influence, tired, you might be playing your D game, which is, 0 to -3 big blinds per 100. If you're playing your A game, it's 3 or more big blinds per 100, which is obviously a great winning player. If you want to play your B and C game, which let's say, for example, you've been out to a party, you didn't drink, you got home tired, and you just want to play some poker, it's still winning poker, so there's no problem. You realize that you're not playing your optimal, you're a bit distracted, you're looking at your cat, you're watching TV, you're talking on Facebook. There's no problem there unless it starts to affect and get into D game. So rather than taking all this time to study your play and realize what could I have done better to get more value here, go back and say, what hands made me tilt? Why did it make me tilt? And what do I have to realize and understand that this game, this stuff can happen? For example, on the pocket queens on the button here, for all we know, this player has kings and this player has aces. We don't know that yet. We just think we have a really strong hand pre-flop, which we do. And we just feel like we can start to raise and bet. And against this player's range in the small and big blind, we are in actual fact, we should believe that they don't have as good a hand as they do. So yeah, essentially what I'm going to say is good luck to you guys doing it. If you have any questions, post in the comments below. But I highly recommend doing any of the things that we spoke about sort of in this video. And I will put some links in the description to sort of aid you guys, because I have no problem in that regard, to sort of help you tilt less. So as I farewell you, what I will say is happy hunting and may you tilt less. See you next time.